Welcome again. We are in chapter 9, and in essence, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time introducing this chapter to you. I think it's fairly self explanatory, but it really is bridging that gap between where and what we've looked at in terms of this organization overall, the industry, the world, etc., all the strategic elements, transitioning with chapter 8, thinking about brand positioning and the brand itself, moving now into operational decisions for this organization. So, to me, again, really exciting that you've built up this base of really insightful information to help you better position and strategically approach where this organization is going and now how you're going to get there. So, chapter 9 really introduces the idea of another marketing tool that we use. You remember the strategy sheet, worksheet we used for building strategy. Well, we have a tactical operational worksheet that we're going to use for the remainder of the semester, and that's going to help focus and organize our tactical operational decision making as it relates to marketing overall. So, welcome to chapter 9. Just a few slides and actually a short amount of time to introduce this chapter. The chapter itself looks at not only the tools and worksheets that we're going to use for the remainder of the semester, but talks about how the worksheet will work, because that's how operational decision making should work. The worksheet was designed with the idea that if we could have two worksheets that completely explain the complexity of marketing and really helped organizations and individuals focus on all of the tools in the toolkit, that we would write and implement better marketing plans that would achieve organizational objectives. That's our focus. That's been the direction all along. So this chapter introduces that concept of how are we going to use all the tools in our toolbox to again achieve the target market objective that you've already written. So chapter 9 focuses on operational decision making. When we think about that, I want you to think again where you're at with this organization. Kind of the basic premise is, okay, they have a current existence like we all do, right? They're currently acting in one way and behaving in one way. They currently have a certain outcome or outcomes in their organization. They have a status of current existence. And the basic premise that many don't operate under is really where we're transitioning these remaining chapters. That is, whatever it got you where you are today is not sufficient to keep you there. So even if the organization you're working for is incredibly successful and they have everything going for them, if they keep operating under that same way of thinking and acting, and in terms of marketing communication, sending out the same messages, the same coupon book, the same process, they're not going to stay a leader in this organization. Conversely, if it's an organization that's really struggling, if they keep operating in that same way, they will keep demising in that situation. I mean, they'll keep getting worse. They're not going to stay where they are. It's not going to be a good picture. So we want to always embrace the philosophy and practice that we should be in a constant mode of rethinking, learning, redoing, making sure. So this marketing plan process is, again, embedded throughout an organization. The marketing plan process and thought is a regular part of business. This isn't a one-time shot in the arm, go through these steps and be done. This should be a regular mindset in an organization. It should also be, annually, formally planned and strategically identified. But this is a way to do business. This is not a here, use the template, do this once and be done. This is a philosophy, as you know from earlier chapters. It's an all-embracing, all-encompassing process. So if you don't buy into this concept yet, I hope you do by now, that you have to be in constant evolution and looking, because whatever you're doing now, it's not going to be good enough. As we think then about that premise, we want to think about what we've been doing so far in marketing and really the true kind of circle of marketing development. We've been looking at where this organization is now and where are we as an industry now, right? How do we think about it? How do we act upon it? What kind of very specific actions do we take? You and your organizational assessment and all of the other assessments has learned a great deal of information about where the current and historic, but current state is. Secondly, then, in this whole target marketing assessment, you looked at where they'd like to be. You learned about marketing objectives or specific organizational objectives they have, but also you've written a target market objective. Again, real organization, we have 4 to 8 of those at this planning part of the process, but you've looked at where you want to be. We want to increase the number of weddings we have here from this market segment, right? We want to increase the number of corporate groups. We want to increase the transient travelers from the Chicagoland area. We want to increase the number of golf outings that we have at our golf course, etc. So whole bunch of different marketing objectives, and everybody's focused on something separate. That's why, again, no one could give you a template that says implement this in your organization and you will be a success. There are so many variables that even if we were looking at 2 championship golf courses in relatively, that looked more identical in 2 different areas, because their competitors change, because the market's different, because the conditions of the organization are different, makes everything different. So we always want to reevaluate everything. So we've already looked at where you want to be. So where we're going now in the remaining chapters, starting with this chapter 9, is, okay, how do we get there? If the objective is to get and make this target market happen, how are we going to do that? And then how do we know we got there? And have we evaluated what worked and what didn't? And how can we learn from all of that to then keep that constant circle of thinking, okay, where are we now then, based on what we've learned and what we've done? And based on all that, where we want to be. So this is an evolution, a constant cycle. We're halfway there, which makes sense because we're halfway through our chapters and we're into our second half of another worksheet. So that worksheet looks like this. I call it stage 2. I call it the marketing, promotional, and communication mix. And what it does in more historic thinking about marketing, we used to say it was these 4 P's of marketing, right? And the 4 P's included product, price, place, and promotion. And those 4 P's were like the tools in the toolkit for any marketer to apply to make something happen. Well, that premise still holds true because that's our historic roots, these 4 P's of marketing. But you'll notice these 4 P's are now blown up on this worksheet. And the whole idea was that was a good model of thinking since those 4 P's were introduced in the 1950s. That's, that's a good way of thinking and again, packaging or understanding marketing, but anymore we have a whole bunch of tools in our toolkit. So under that same premise of the 4 P's are this historic base, this worksheet builds upon those and does several things. So in our perfect marketing world, we would have thought through all of these tools in our toolkit and decided if we're going to use them or not. Unlike the assessment or in the strategy side where we really should have answers to every question in every box, here we should think about every box, but it doesn't mean we're going to utilize every box. And if you think, about it in a simple way, it makes a lot of sense, that if our target market is to increase the number of weddings, that are destination type weddings and people traveling from the Midwest to our Northern Michigan resort kind of idea and how we're going to go about getting them. We're not necessarily going to use all these tools to do that, but I want to think about all these tools because maybe I've been doing it one way all along and I keep doing this one tactical action, and maybe again this affords me the opportunity to think about it differently and open my eyes to potential new ways of reaching a market that we haven't thought about in the past. So for me, this worksheet is about brainstorming. It's about thinking about all the tools in the toolkit. Know that my first evolution of this worksheet looked a little bit different, and the one in your textbook looks a little different because we have more tools today than we had a few years ago. So again, this worksheet has a life just like the strategy worksheet has changed, so has this, which means again, marketing changes. The way we approach it strategically and tactfully also changes. So chapter 9 introduces the idea of this worksheet, but you'll want to utilize this more updated worksheet in your tactical planning because, again, it represents how marketing tools, marketing potential things we should be looking at have changed a long time. So won't look the same again in a couple years either. Beauty of the topic. So as we move forward, what I've tried to do is break it down into thinking the same process of decisions, and we will start working on this in the next chapter, actually going through each one of the steps. So my purpose in this chapter is to introduce the concept of this worksheet, how we're going to use it to operationally decide marketing decisions, and that's the chapter further looks at actual things and tools we'll use to make those decisions. I'll do an applied portion of this current chapter later in the semester when you actually walk through those steps of evaluating your decisions and also processing which of the decisions you'll make. So in an applied manner, or my desire to have an applied approach to this chapter, I'll really be talking about how you'll use this tool, and I'll show you how to use this tool later in the semester. So with that, let me introduce the concept again. Top right-hand corner is your organization. So recognize for your organization, this is how we'll complete it. Every one of you will have a different worksheet, and even more broadly, the second area that we'll look at is filling in your target market objective. So if you recall, the very last step you took in our strategy section of marketing development was to write a target market objective. So you will rewrite that target market objective in the top of this box as you use this as a worksheet to help you facilitate the decisions you'll make in these last sections of the marketing plan. Recognize, I will never see this worksheet from you only to look at your brainstorm. Never I will see this in your final marketing plan. This is a worksheet. This is not actually what you'll turn into your organization. It's not something that you'll use on a day-to-day basis. You'll transfer that into a more usable format. This is a brainstorm exercise. So one of the neatest things I do is I make these very big flip chart size pages. I put it on a wall, and I'll use it with every target market, because my goal here is to identify a whole bunch of ways that I'm going to make this objective happen. So if my objective again is to increase the number of senior citizen men within 5 miles of my fitness center who have interest in competitive activities and are senior citizens, right? If I use that same target market I've talked about in the past, then I'm going to write that here, and I'm going to focus on them completely. I often say to people, become them. When we're walking through this worksheet, I want you to become that target market. So picture me now, 65-year-old male who's pretty fit, interested. I've got lots of time free because I'm retired, and I live within 5 miles of this center, but I have interest in socialization. I have interest in competitive activities, and want you as a fitness center to help facilitate some of that for me. So I become that person. I think about what they need and want. All of the things that you learned in your target market assessment, I'm going to apply here, because I really need to understand this target market inside and out. So if I become them, I'll start thinking like them. And that's the goal here as we start to brainstorm ways to deliver high quality experiences, designing high quality experiences, connecting with the right partners, and again, redesigning the brand to appeal to this market segment, and then again, communicating and reaching out very directly in meaningful ways to this target market. We're not talking about the organization overall. We're talking about the organization as it relates to this target market. So the question might be, how many of these worksheets would we have if our organization does target and look at 4 to 8 target markets per annual planning cycle for our organization? I love pausing to hopefully get you to answer that question. So how many worksheets would we have if we went after 4 target markets this year? We would have 4 worksheets, because again, we're going to own this target market. So we need to focus very specifically on it right now. And then we'd have another worksheet for the next target market, and we'd have another worksheet for the next target market. So keep in mind, personalized decision making related to these market segments is what we're moving toward. We'll pull all 4 of those or 8 of those, 6 of those together to write a formal plan at the end, but we need to think about these independently. And some of our tactics may overlap. We maybe want to do the same activity for the family market that we did the senior market, that we did the teen market, but maybe not. And chances are, when you look at it very independently, you two will agree, they really are quite different because the needs of those markets are very different. The way we reach those markets are very different, right? You agree the way we would reach your grandparents are different than the way we'd reach you? We're not reading, looking, doing, watching, listening to the same things. So the way we reach each of you is going to be very different. So having said that, all you're going to do is transpose and rewrite your target market objective here and tape this onto a wall, print it out first, tape it onto a wall, have it, and know that we're going to be walking through all of these sections over the next many weeks. So we'll continue to brainstorm and add items in. So the first step of the process, I've numbered them to kind of say, here's how, again, I want you to start thinking about where we're going and how we're going to use this tool and worksheet to help us make better decisions for this organization. And that's our goal, right? So I have to the left column here this, the first step. So I have the target market in mind. I know I want to get 100 more of them, in this next year. So I've got that quantity or that feel of how much work it's going to take. I know potential demand. I know there's roughly 1,000 in the market. So I know this is going to be, a real challenge. I'm going to have to be really niched and really find them specifically because it's not like there's, a whole bunch of them in this market. So I've picked this market for a reason because I think I can make a difference to them, and for our organization. So the first step is what I call maybe the only kind of slightly fictitious part of this worksheet. Because back in chapter 2, we learned about the power of the experience in what we do. We recognize our experience has 5 distinct phases. Now that's a theory, and we know that as an organization, we learned this earlier this semester, the anticipation phase is typically marketing communication, right? The travel to and travel from phases are often neglected in organizations. The destination, the quality of the experience, hopefully has been our focus, but we talked about moments of truth and all of those important aspects of quality in chapter 3. And then the reflection phase, again, once we're all back at home and we've completed an experience in our field and our industry, we're back thinking about it, remembering it, etc. So we again, certainly hope it was a really good experience because power of word of mouth and power of positive thinking. I don't want to think of, that travel experience or park experience or attraction experience, anything about our industry. I don't want to think about those things that we've delivered them poorly. So we want the reflection to be really positive, obviously. So I keep this on the worksheet because I don't feel as an industry we've really embraced those 5 concepts. So if I don't bring them back to you to kind of force you to think about, hey, wait, we're about to rethink how we deliver what we deliver and what we deliver for this target market, it is the time to think about those 5 distinct phases again. So I want you to recall those concepts of chapter 2, the idea of these 5 phases, because I want you designing for this organization as it relates to this target market ideas for each of these 5 phases. So part of operational decision making is taking all the theoretical constructs that we can use and think about them in an applied way to help us be better organizations and better meet the needs of the target markets we want to serve. We've identified. Nobody else has told us who we have to serve as this organization. We have selected the people, the groups, whether transient or group business, that we want to go after because that's going to help us fulfill our business objectives, right? So, although slightly fictitious, it's more a concept here that I want to make sure you build into this marketing decision making. Don't forget about these 5 phases. And I want to make sure in your final marketing plan you've shown me you haven't forgotten about them and that you've done things to help this organization think more broadly and deeply about the experiences they provide to their intended target markets. Again, keep in mind, I'm going to use external customers as the example here, but your target market may be employees. Your target market may be existing customers in keeping retention, right? It doesn't mean it's all outside new customers. It's all our stakeholder groups. It's the people we're serving, and it depends on our organization in terms of the target markets you select. So in here, your job is to make sure you've addressed these 5 phases somewhere in these tactical decisions that we're going to go through the remainder of the semester. For now, start thinking about these 5 phases and make sure you buy in, I hope, to the philosophy and the theory of the importance of our experience beyond just the destination. So only a slightly fictitious part of this worksheet in terms of this is really a philosophy and a theory that I'm making sure you apply to these next steps. So once you have this embedded and ingrained that I'm always going to think about someone's experience with us very, again, broadly, deeply, I move on to the next step. I go back to my target market objective and I think about the marketing mix first. So very distinctly in this worksheet and the way we process operational decisions, we want to not get into tactical actions. I'm not making a decision about a coupon book. I'm not making a decision about anything yet except our first historic 3 Ps of those 4 Ps. So you're going to notice that I've taken these first 3 Ps and they're still about the operation. So if you as someone who's interested in being an operations person in our industry, or you're currently an operations person in our industry, and you came into this class thinking, oh, marketing, that's their job. I hope already you're embracing it's everybody's job, first of all. But now, very tactically, we are going to make operational decisions about our organization to meet the needs of this market. We're not even talking about communicating to them yet. We're talking about the first, or really second step according to this, but the first step we walk through is thinking about what we offer to that target market, how we are distributed or placed for that target market, and how we are priced for that target market. So I find it always very interesting when oftentimes in organizations in our field, we have the operations people over here and kind of the marketing sales people over here. And sometimes in our business, there could be some conflict between the two. You know, they're going after trying to find the people and sell and promise them things that the operations people are going to have to deliver on. So we always want to have that be seamless. You know, that again, operations, sales, and marketing. Sorry, folks, you are all one thing. And the more and faster your organization thinks like that, we're all marketers, we're all operations people, that we're not going to have any of those conflicts anymore, because we all get the tools in the toolkit involve not only reaching consumers, right, in meaningful ways that we're targeting, but it's delivering that experience in a high quality way. So the more we're together on all this, hence the reason the importance of bringing operations and marketing types and a hodgepodge or a nice distribution of different types of employees and stakeholders to the table to help us plan this marketing plan. We will represent all of those interests. So going back to how the worksheet and the process is going to work, we talk about here's our target market objective. We're first going to ask ourselves these 3 questions. Do we have the right price? And if not, what should the right price be? Better look at my competitive assessment, better look at the needs and the wants of this target market, better look at my position branding chart that I made in the target market assessment, and see if price is important and if we're priced right in the eyes of the market. If not, what kind of price recommendations would we make? Then we're going to work on distribution in place. And again, then we're going to work on the offering. So starting with the offering, and we'll work on this in chapter 10. So I won't give it all away, but the idea is we're going to think, are we offering to this target market everything they need? So if you go back to my senior citizen men within 5 miles, blah, 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 right? That target market, are we as a fitness organization offering them what they need? And what could our brainstorm be? And this is a brainstorm we're going to be working on. What are all the things we could offer to them? Products, policies, right? Services, programs, all those things you looked at what we're doing as an organization. What else could we do? And how could we tweak it to meet the needs of this market? Go back to your brand map again. Were we positioned right in the eyes of this market? Were we giving them what they wanted? If we weren't, then it's going to tell us here we're going to have to take some action. So we are going to look at the operation, what we offer, how we're priced, and who we partner with. Distribution tends to be a more difficult area for us to embrace. So we're going to spend some time on it in detail in Chapter 10 to make sure you can wrap your arms around this idea of linking us to this target market through distribution channels or sources or place distribution. So there's some concepts here, but I'm going to save that for Chapter 10. So the idea again, target market, we make decisions about the marketing mix. We brainstorm first, then we decide we're going to charge $129.99. We're going to link and partner through a online travel site like or Travelocity. We're going to link through them. We're going to sell what we're doing through them, and we're going to offer them said added services or change in services so we are more attractive to that target market and we meet their needs more effectively than anybody else. Keep in mind this whole time, and I'll say it 50 times if I don't say it at all, and the whole idea is we're going to own this target market or don't go after it. If you can't be the best at approaching it, it's going to make everything else we do more difficult. So own the target markets you're saying you want to go after. And if you can't do that, go find another one you can. The next step of the process then, once we create the right experience, right, at the right price, we are then going to make sure our brand messaging, our promotional mix, our brand messaging, the collateral we're going to use to communicate to that market, and any promotional events we might do to reach that target market again. So always with the thought and feeling of the target market, we now are going to make sure our brand message is up to date, current, reflective of the needs of this market. And when we talk about the brand message, we're talking again about that brand identity, the logo, the look, the slogan, the feel, the design, the layout, all of those things that are going to be part of our collateral design. And when we say collateral, that's everything from our website look and our brochures we use and our merchandise that we might have, t-shirts that we have logoed, or pens that we might give away. Anything we're going to use to help us facilitate between the target market and the tool that I'm going to use in the communication mix. So for example, if I'm going to use direct sales, I'm going to do a sales presentation to try and make something happen for this target market. What kind of things am I going to need to make that direct sales call? Am I going to need a mug with our logo on it and a brochure stuffed in it with some candy and my business card so I can make that one-on-one sales call or one on a small group sales call kind of idea? Conversely, if I'm going to do a paid advertisement, and what kind of graphic design am I going to use for that advertisement itself, talking to this target market based on, again, the strengths of our organization. Go back to the SWOT analysis, and we want to reflect on that here, because the SWOT analysis for this target market, your revised SWOT analysis, right, should reflect again how this market thinks of us. And based on those strengths, we want to make sure we use those strengths in our collateral design, the messaging we're going to share with people, and how we're going to actually tell them. So for me, in order to take all of these amazing tools in the toolkit for marketing and simplify the process in a way that anyone in our industry could apply the tools in a more logical, strategic manner that would make sense, and it would help them make sure they've considered all the tools that are available and then use the ones that are most appropriate. for this target market, for this organization. So moving forward, we've gone from our target market objectives to thinking about the right offering, the right distribution, the right price with the right message related to our strengths, using the right types of materials to share that message. And then we say promotional events, and we'll get into this in more detail in chapter 10. But the idea is shot in the arm promotional events to spur activity towards reaching this target market. I've got a brand new hotel I've opened up. We're going to do a grand opening. I'm not going to do it all the time. I'm doing it once, a promotional event designed to spark action towards this target market. So I might do an anniversary party. I may do a special promotional event tied to a golf pro with a super skill. I'm bringing Jack Nicklaus to my golf course, and I'm going to do a promotional event surrounding that because I'm going after the senior citizen, golfer. Heck, I'm going after every golfer with Jack Nicklaus, but you get the idea. Okay, so we know the event business. This is something that's in our bag of tricks. It's interesting to me over the last many years, every marketing firm that exists has added event staff members because promotional events have become incredibly popular activity to spur demand. There are events solely designed, right, just to get target markets to buy into the experience, right? To buy it, to purchase it, to experience it, etc. So promotional events, shot in the arm type of events versus a regular event, a golf league we might decide to add, a monthly dine in and golf package. Those are regular offerings. Those are things we're going to do. That's part of our packages that we create. We're talking here about shot in the arm events that spark getting towards that market with our right message, right offer, right price, right place, right materials, and now we get to go tell them. So it's amazing to me when I work with organizations in our field and I work with you on your marketing plan that this is typically when we think of marketing, we think of the tactical stuff that relates to communicating because that's what we see and hear. We don't know behind each one of those decisions should have had an incredibly strong strategy and an incredibly sound, thorough thought processes related to our offerings and pricing as well as related to our brand messaging and our collateral, etc. So finally, we get to go tell them, I've got all the right stuff. I've got the right offering. I've got the right experience for people. It's priced right for this market. I've got all the most beautiful tools, a beautifully designed website, the right materials to go and make sure they get it, whether it's an advertisement or a brochure, for a rack card or whatever we want to refer to it. It might be a pen that I've designed that I'm going to give out, whatever. I've got all the right stuff. And now it makes marketing, again, relatively easy because I'm going to use all the communication tools in my toolkit. I'm going to brainstorm all of these, figure out what's the best way to reach this market. I already have the meaningful way with the meaningful offering, right? And if I'm owning this market, I've done these 2 steps right. Now I get to go tell them. And it makes telling them an absolute joy because I've designed and I'm giving them what they want and what they need. And it makes this process for me and those of us who've been in marketing for years a gold mine. It makes it a complete joy. Their why was right. They've given me all the right stuff to be able to present to this consumer, right? Bill Shepler gave me under the bridge, right? Ferry boat experience. Gave me a competitive advantage with educational information for that family market that wanted that. They told us they wanted it. We redesigned it. We gave it to them. We're going under the Mackinac Bridge as part of the experience. We're making something bigger happen for this organization. But guess what? Until we told them about it, they never would have known. So much of really great marketing is, well, all great marketing to me is double sorted, meaning you got to have the right stuff and then you got to have the right message in a meaningful way. So when we think about why organizations fail, go back to chapter 1, it's not necessarily because what they're doing isn't right. They might have the greatest experience, but they might not be telling people in meaningful ways. The actual communication link. Think about events you've planned. Think about things you've done in our field already. What was the barrier to your greatness? Hopefully you had greatness happen, but if you had a barrier to it, I venture to say more times than not, it was because you didn't reach people in meaningful ways and get them to come. It wasn't because what you designed wasn't really cool. Now, conversely, they may have came and not had a good experience, so maybe what you designed wasn't really cool, but your marketing was really strong. Your marketing communication was very strong. But the design of the experience needed some work too. So organizations largely fail because we haven't reached people in meaningful ways, and that in of itself is an amazing challenge that we'll face. But you've got to have the right stuff in place for this target market, and now we're going to go tell them in meaningful ways. So the remaining 4 chapters, 11, 12, 13, and 14, all focus on the communication mix. Recognize, though, that every one of these topics, you have classes, a million video YouTube links, you have majors just in each one of these topics. You can be a direct selling major, right, in college. You can be a public relations major in college. So you know that we are introducing each one of these concepts throughout our remaining chapters, enough to make you dangerous, right? Make sure you know what the tool means, but know this tool is incredibly deep, deep, deep. And should you have passion or interest in really mastering one of them, know that there's lots of excellent educational and training programs related to really becoming masterful in each of the tactical tools in our communication toolkit. The last step of the process related to the marketing, promotional, and communication mix, as Chapter 9 introduces, is the focus toward evaluation and future market research. We will be and need to make recommendations of how we're going to evaluate if all of these decisions were effective. We oftentimes in marketing, and it's been our own fault over time, that we tactically will do a bunch of stuff, but we don't necessarily hold ourselves accountable to all those tactical actions and learn from each one of those decisions. Did it make sense to be in the coupon book? And some of the examples across the semester I've shared already, highlight some of those things. If I'm doing this coupon for years and years, but I never reevaluate if it was worth the $1,000 investment to be in the book, then shame on me, kind of idea. So we want to make sure we build into this marketing plan how we're going to evaluate each one of our tactical decisions that we decide, and how we're going to evaluate in our actual marketing objective. Did we actually have 100 new people come in? And what's the plan for evaluating that? And does this whole marketing plan make sense once we cost it out and actually identify the tactical decisions we're going to make and the collateral we're going to use, right? Does this all make sense because I've spent X amount of resource, whether it's time, money, or effort, right? X amount of resource to make this objective happen. So we're actually going to wrap up this marketing plan by formally evaluating, did the planning make sense in terms of what we're going to spend to reach X amount of new people in this target market? And then finally, what we're going to hopefully really clearly see by the time we're done here is we need more information to help us make better decisions. And how are we going to continue to refine getting more big data? Go back to Chapter 5, the importance of primary and secondary data and information to help us be better operators and be better marketing communications professionals. So your recommendations here really go back to feeding the process back up. Our market research, all of our strategy information refeeds the system. So again, this isn't going away, and hopefully more and more you start thinking, and because we have created this visual for us to think about this amazing marketing process, this amazing tools available to us in marketing, we want to break it down by distinctions very succinctly to help us wrap our arms around it better, learn it more deeply, and understand the decision-making process in this chapter that helps explain how we're going to finish up this process and this semester. So recognize Chapter 10, we're moving into just the marketing mix. Again, chapter 11, and then moving into 12, 13, and 14, feeding the whole system as we go. So welcome again to chapter 9. Very exciting time, because now you get to say, if this was my target market objective, here are all the ways we're going to go about making that happen. And so again, this is a worksheet designed to brainstorm, get a whole bunch of ideas on here. I'll show you again next week how we're going to use some tools and techniques to help us think of new and better ideas, because whatever it was that got you to where you are, right, isn't going to be enough to keep you there. So you have got to think outside the box. You have got to think about this specific target market and owning the market so you can make a difference for this organization. Welcome back. Can't wait to have you keep going through the process. See you next time.